তাই না? ওয়াটার ইজ সিক্রেশন, লিটল অর্গানিক কন্টেন্ট, ঠিক কি না?
জি ম্যাম।
কিচ্ছু পড়াশোনা করছো না, আই এম ভেরি মাচ আপসেট, আই এম ভেরি মাচ আপসেট। কি লাভ তোমাদেরকে পড়িয়ে? ডিসেম্বরে যদি পরীক্ষা হয় কি অ্যান্সার দিবে? কোশ্চেন তো এগুলি, কোশ্চেন এগুলি জিজ্ঞেস করা হবে, কিন্তু কিচ্ছু পড়াশোনা করছো না তোমরা। দিস ইজ ভেরি আপসেটিং থিং। ওকে, today we'll study gastric juice. Gastric juice. See the composition of gastric juice. For written exam, you have to write down like this way: water 99.45% and total solid 0.55%, inorganic sodium chloride, potassium chloride, calcium phosphate, magnesium phosphate, hydrochloric acid, etc., and organic compound mucin. This is really viva question. That is, what are the important constituents of gastric juice? You have to tell these things. That is mucin, intrinsic factor of Castle, enzyme pepsinogen, hormone gastrin. These are the important constituents of gastric juice. That is intrinsic factor of Castle, mucin, hormone gastrin, and another thing কি বলেছিলাম, হাইড্রোক্লোরিক অ্যাসিডের কথাটাও বলতে হয়, তাই না? হাইড্রোক্লোরিক অ্যাসিড। তাহলে these are the important constituents of gastric juice for viva exam. For written exam you have to write down like this way. Okay. Now functions of stomach, তাহলে written question, if this question come like this, write down the functions of stomach. You have to write motor functions of stomach, and secretory functions of stomach. First, you have to write, if the question come in written exam, what are the functions of stomach? You have to write down like this way: motor functions of stomach and secretory functions of stomach. Motor functions, already you know this thing very well, that is storage function, mixing function, and slow emptying function. Already we discussed this thing several times. Motor functions of stomach: storage, mixing, and slow emptying. Now secretory functions, that is secretion of the stomach. Three types of glands are present in the mucosa of the stomach, that is cardiac glands, gastric glands, and pyloric glands. Cardiac glands, that is from cardiac glands, mucus secreting cell present here secretes mucus. And gastric glands, there are several types of gastric gland present, that is 80% present in the body and fundus of the stomach. Please write down everybody this thing and listen to me very carefully, because correction, this is corrected slide, I do correction in this slide. Gastric gland, 80% present in the body and fundus of the stomach. There are several types of gastric gland present in the body and fundus of the stomach. First one is mucus next cell, which secrete mainly mucus, and peptic or chip cell or gymogenic cell secrete large quantities of pepsinogen, and also secrete gastric lipase. This peptic cell mainly secrete pepsinogen, also it secrete gastric lipase. And oxyntic or parietal cell secrete hydrochloric acid and intrinsic factor of Castle. And enterochromaffin like cell, this is very important cell, ECL, enterochromaffin like cell secrete histamine. This is very important MCQ question. Next class, of course, I will ask you question from gastric juice. Please remember this thing. তোমরা কিছুই লেখাপড়া করছো না, তোমাদের ফার্স্ট টপ কিন্তু চলে আসলো, কিন্তু এখনো পড়াশোনা করছো না। আমি নেক্সট ক্লাস গ্যাস্ট্রিক জুস থেকে কিন্তু কোশ্চেন করব, ঠিক আছে? তাহলে দেখো, গ্যাস্ট্রিক গ্ল্যান্ড থেকে 4 ধরনের সেল থাকে: সেল, peptic or chip cell or gymogenic cell, oxyntic or parietal cell, enterochromaffin like cell, ECL. It secrete histamine. Please, I have done many thing correction here, so please write down this thing. Pyloric glands, 20% present in the antral portion of the stomach. তাহলে দেখো, স্টোমাকের যে antral portion, সেখানে 20% হচ্ছে থাকে pyloric gland. It secrete mucin. Also small amount of pepsinogen comes from this antral portion of the pyloric gland. And hormone gastrin, G cells of the antral mucosa of the stomach secrete gastrin. That is in the pyloric antrum, that is antral portion of the stomach secrete hormone. G cells of the antral portion secrete gastrin hormone, and D cells of the antrum of the stomach secrete somatostatin. This is also important for MCQ exam, MCQ question. Okay, that is antral portion of the pyloric gland secrete mucin, small amount of pepsinogen, and G cells of the antrum secrete gastrin, and D cells of the antrum secrete somatostatin. You have to remember this thing. These are the secretory function. This is the secretory function of the stomach, and these are the motor function of the stomach. So function of stomach, it is divided into two parts, motor and secretory function. See the figure of stomach. This is fundus of the stomach. This is body of the stomach, and this is antrum of the stomach. See here, body of the stomach secretes mucus, pepsinogen, hydrochloric acid, and see antrum secretes mucus, pepsinogen, gastrin, and also somatostatin. G cell secrete gastrin, and D cell secrete somatostatin. Somatostatin also comes from where? প্যানক্রিয়াটিক কোন সেল থেকে আসে? ডি সেল থেকে, তাই না? আমরা জানি যে এন্ডোক্রাইন পোর্শন অফ দ্য প্যানক্রিয়াস, there are 4 types of cell: A cell or alpha cell, B cell or beta cell, D cell or delta cell. এই delta cell থেকে কি আসে? somatostatin. And also antrum of the pyloric gland, also স্টোমাকের D cell থেকেও কি আসবে? somatostatin release হয়. See this figure I have taken from 26th edition Ganong, figure 25-5. See here, there is surface mucosal cell all over the surface of the stomach. There are a lot of surface mucosal cell which secrete mucus and which constitutes the gastric mucosal barrier. The surface mucosal cell always secretes mucus and alkaline bicarbonate secretion. Bicarbonate and alkaline mucus secretes from the surface mucosal cell. All over the surface of the stomach is lined by surface mucosal cell which always secrete alkaline mucus, that is mucus plus bicarbonate. Okay, mucus next cell, see here, secretes mucus. Parietal cell secrete always hydrochloric acid and intrinsic factor, and enterochromaffin like cell histamine secretion, and chief cell or gymogenic cell, that is peptic cell or chief cell or gymogenic cell, secrete pepsinogen. This figure I have taken from Ganong. Same thing. This is gastric pit. These are the rugose. These are the gastric rugose. Okay, in between gastric pit, mucus next cell, chief cell, parietal cell, lumen of the gland. Now, very important written question. Several times this question came under Chittagong University and Chittagong Medical University. Mechanism of secretion of gastric hydrochloric acid secretion. You can write down this answer from your textbook, Guyton, and also from Ganong. I think from Ganong it will be easier to write this answer from Ganong. See here, gastric hydrochloric acid secretion is secreted by the parietal cells of gastric gland. Already you know these things, that hydrochloric acid secreted from gastric parietal cell. Okay, at first, see the figure from Ganong. See, carbon dioxide, this is interstitial fluid. There is 3 things here I'm showing you. First things, interstitial fluid. This is parietal cell. This is gastric lumen. Carbon dioxide, see here, carbon dioxide enters. This figure I have taken from Ganong. Okay, carbon dioxide enters from interstitial fluid into the gastric parietal cell and added with water. In presence with carbonic anhydrous, it is converted to carbonic acid. This carbonic acid then divided into hydrogen ion and bicarbonate ion. Okay, this hydrogen ion, see here, comes into the gastric lumen in exchange of potassium. By hydrogen potassium ATPase pump. Another name of hydrogen potassium ATPase pump is proton pump. This hydrogen ion comes into the gastric lumen in exchange of potassium by hydrogen potassium ATPase pump, that is proton pump. Okay, see here, In the basolateral, already I mentioned in several times in general physiology that every cell in basolateral side there is one pump persisting, that is sodium potassium pump. That is 3 sodium always pump out from inside to outside the cell, that is in the interstitial fluid ECF, and potassium 2 potassium ion goes in inward side from ECF to the cell by sodium potassium ATPase pump. Okay, this potassium is excreted into the gastric lumen from cell to the gastric lumen by potassium channel, through the potassium channel. Okay, this potassium again enter from gastric lumen into the parietal cell through the hydrogen potassium ATPase pump, that is through potassium pump. Okay, now what about the bicarbonate ion? This bicarbonate goes towards the interstitial fluid, that is ECF, in exchange of chloride ion, that is antiport system. Antiport, that is count through the antiport system means which things? That is what do you mean by antiport? This is one kind of secondary active transport or counter transport. That is this bicarbonate which is produced within the parietal cell. This goes towards the interstitial fluid in exchange of chloride ion, that is antiport or counter transport mechanism. That is one kind of secondary active transport. This secondary active transport energy comes from the primary active transport, that is from sodium potassium pump. This now what about the chloride enters into the parietal cell? This chloride which enters into the into the parietal cell, several numbers of chloride channel present in the parietal cell, it can easily pump out into the gastric lumen easily. Now see here, hydrogen ion already comes into the gastric lumen. Now chloride ion comes into the gastric lumen and they produce hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid, this is the real mechanism of production of hydrochloric acid according to Ganong. Now see the according to Guyton mechanism, according to, you can write down or draw this figure. You can draw this figure from Guyton also, from Guyton or Ganong, no problem at all. See our figure 65-6 from 13th edition, postulated mechanism for secretion of hydrochloric acid. Then same thing, from interstitial fluid, carbon dioxide enters into the parietal cell, gastric parietal cell, and production of carbonic acid. And this carbonic acid dissociates into hydrogen ion and bicarbonate. And this hydrogen ion comes into the canaliculus, that is gastric lumen, by the hydrogen potassium pump, hydrogen potassium ATPase pump, that is a proton pump. Okay, now this bicarbonate enters into the interstitial fluid in exchange of chloride ion, and there are a lot of chloride channel present in the parietal cell. This chloride easily goes into the gastric lumen, comes into the gastric lumen easily, and there is sodium potassium pump persist in the all cells of our body in the basolateral side. This sodium potassium pump, see, potassium enters into the parietal cell and sodium comes out to the parietal cell. Okay, this potassium again goes through the potassium channel into the gastric lumen, and this potassium again circulate within the parietal cell, so through the proton pump, that is hydrogen potassium ATPase pump. So hydrogen ion and chloride ion which comes into the gastric lumen, they produce hydrochloric acid. And what about water? By the process of osmosis from the ECF, water can easily enters into the parietal cell and ultimately comes into the gastric lumen. This figure from your textbook. Now the mechanism I will discuss now the mechanism from Ganong. At first, carbon dioxide combines with water to produce carbonic acid in a reaction catalyzed by carbonic anhydrase. This carbonic acid dissociates into hydrogen ion and bicarbonate. The bicarbonate is extruded by an antiport, that is counter transport mechanism in the basolateral membrane in the parietal cell, that exchanges bicarbonate for chloride. Already I have shown this thing, this bicarbonate by antiport mechanism, chloride, in exchange of chloride, this bicarbonate extruded, that is, it comes out from parietal cell into the ECF. Now Potassium transported into the cell by sodium potassium ATPase pump onto the basolateral membrane tend to leak into the lumen but are recycled back into the cell. See here, potassium that is transported by the sodium potassium pump, that is usually leak from the parietal cell into the gastric lumen, which is again recirculate from gastric lumen into the parietal cell by the hydrogen potassium ATPase pump. Okay, next point, in exchange for this potassium, hydrogen found by dissociation of carbonic acid is secreted into the gastric lumen by hydrogen potassium pump. This hydrogen potassium pump is also called proton pump. Now, the chloride ion which enters the parietal cell in exchange of bicarbonate is secreted into the gastric lumen through chloride channels. Finally, the parietal cell secretion becomes a solution of hydrochloric acid that contains 150 milliequivalent of hydrogen ion and 150 milliequivalent of chloride per liter. This mechanism I have taken 22nd edition Ganong. Okay, but you can write down this thing from Guyton also, 13th edition Guyton also. Okay. See the figure from Guyton. Finally, 155 milliequivalent of hydrogen and chloride, that is 150 to 60. You can write here in range 150 to 160 milliequivalent of hydrochloric acid per liter production occurs, and potassium, that is 15 milliequivalent of potassium chloride occurs, and also minimum amount of sodium chloride also production occurs according to Guyton. Now, regulation of secretion of gastric juice. Regulation of secretion of gastric juice. This is also very important written question. Regulation of secretion of gastric juice. Gastric juice secretion occurs at, there are three phases of gastric juice secretion: cephalic phase, gastric phase, and intestinal phase. This secretion is regulated by neural regulation and hormonal regulation. Neural regulation, local autonomic reflexes involving cholinergic neuron, that is by acetylcholine. Impulses from the CNS by the parasympathetic fibers of the vagus nerve. Okay, this is the neural regulation. And hormonal regulation, that is basic factors that stimulate gastric secretions are always acetylcholine, gastrin, histamine. Hormonal regulation mainly occurs by acetylcholine, gastrin, histamine. These three are basic factors that stimulate gastrin secretion. This is very, very important MCQ question and also Viva question. Examiner always like to ask this question: what are the basic factors that stimulate gastric secretion? These three things: acetylcholine, gastrin, and histamine. Later on, I will discuss this figure now. Inhibition of gastric secretion. Two things inhibit gastric secretion. Number one, reverse enterogastric reflex. That is, the presence of food in the small intestine initiates a reverse enterogastric reflex. Enterogastric means intestine to stomach. This is called reverse enterogastric reflex that inhibits gastric secretion. Whenever food comes into the small intestine, it initiates a reverse enterogastric reflex that inhibits gastric secretion. Also, some hormones inhibit gastric secretion. Which hormone? Secretin, GIP, VIP, somatostatin, that inhibit gastric secretion. This is very, very important MCQ question. Which hormone inhibit gastric secretion? Secretin, GIP, VIP, somatostatin. That is the presence of acid, fat, protein breakdown products, hyperosmotic or hyposmotic fluid, or any irritating factor in the upper small intestine causes release of several intestinal hormones, that is secretin, GIP, VIP, and somatostatin, that inhibit gastric secretion. These are the regulation of gastric acid secretion. This is very, very important written question. Describe the regulation of gastric secretion. You have to write down This is a regulation. You have to neural regulation and hormonal regulation, and factors that stimulate gastric secretion and factors that inhibits gastric secretion. Now you have to draw this figure from 26th edition Ganong. 26th edition Ganong figure 25-7. This is recent edition. 26th edition Ganong added this figure. Regulation of gastric juice secretion. See here minutely. This is the fundus, this is the body, and this is the antrum portion of the stomach. Fundus, see here, fundus, body, and antrum portion of the stomach. See here. First thing, G cell of the antrum of the stomach secrete G cell of the antrum of the stomach in presence of GRP, that is gastrin releasing peptide. Nerve ending secreted GRP hormone, that is gastrin releases nerve ending secreted GRP, gastrin releasing peptide. These GRP stimulate G cells of the antral mucosa of the stomach, which secrete gastrin. See here in this figure, gastrin stimulate three things. First things, it stimulate ECL cell, that is enterochromaffin like cell, to secrete histamine. Gastrin also stimulate the gastric parietal cell to secrete hydrochloric acid, and gastrin also stimulate chief cell to secrete pepsinogen. So role of gastrin here, and see here three things. It stimulates three things. First things, ECL, that is enterochromaffin like cell, which secrete histamine, also stimulate chief cell to secrete pepsinogen, and also it stimulate gastric parietal cell to secrete hydrochloric acid. Now see here, nerve ending secrete acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is secreted from nerve ending. This acetylcholine stimulate which is thing. This see here, this acetylcholine stimulate gastric parietal cell to secrete hydrochloric acid. Also acetylcholine stimulate ECL, that is enterochromaffin like cell, to secrete histamine. Also acetylcholine stimulate chief cell to secrete pepsinogen. These are the stimulators for gastric secretion. This figure, very nice picture from 26th edition Ganong. If you draw this picture, you will obtain good marks in written exam. First thing, GRP, that is nerve ending secreted gastrin releasing peptide, which stimulate the antral mucosa of the stomach to secrete G cell of the stomach to stimulate to secrete gastrin. These gastrin causes stimulation of the three things. Also nerve ending secrete acetylcholine, which causes stimulation of the chief cell. Also this acetylcholine stimulate ECL cell and gastric parietal cell. Now see here, somatostatin, SST means somatostatin. These cells of the antrum of the stomach secrete somatostatin, which always inhibits, see here, it inhibits G cell to secrete gastrin. This is the regulation pathway of gastric secretion, gastric juice secretion, okay? You have to start from here. You have to draw this figure from 26th edition Ganong. This is the inhibition of the gastric secretion. Okay, now I will discuss this phase of gastric juice secretion in the next class. In the next class, I will discuss phases of gastric juice secretion. This is another written question. Describe the phases of gastric juice secretion. Next class. Please, everybody try to study these things. Whatever you study today, please learn these things. Okay? Next class কিন্তু আমি পড়া ধরবো, রোল কল করব এবং পড়া ধরবো নেক্সট ক্লাসে। মনে থাকবে তোমাদের?